Hello everyone and welcome back to the AFL Fantasy Fanatics YouTube channel. It is Thursday and time for some more captains for you ahead of round 22. 3 more weeks of captains before the end of the season. It's been a long one, but hopefully we can get some good captains for you again this week. Last week, not too bad for captains. We had Dawson was the only failure at number 1 with a 96, but we had Shees at number 2 with a 124. So hopefully you guys had him as a VC. You would have taken that as well. Ashcroft at 3, 106, Rankin at 4 for a 121, and Darcy Cameron at 5 for a 120. So a few 120s there, which is nice. A few more unique picks there in Cameron and Rankin. Well, they're probably not unique actually, but yeah, just had good matchups there in the top 5. But yeah, not a bad week. We're actually 24th on Captain's Challenge now, which seems we've had a few injuries early in the year. Is not too bad. So hope we can keep rising up the ranks in there as well. But let's go through to the captains for this round. We've got a big 4. I think the big 4 are top this week for me. And it's been hard to get the order this week, but I think I've settled on an order at the moment. And obviously, tune in on Friday Pre-Lockout Chat. We always go to the final top 5 there, but it doesn't generally change a whole heap unless we get some things at teens. But this is currently my order for round 22. So at number 1, I do have Bailey Smith as my number 1 option. So come up against the Bombers, that Twilight game on Saturday, which is good. So VC option possibly there as well if you've got a late red dot that plays, or at least on the Saturday night. His 2 scores against the Bombers in his career while he's been at Geelong, 120, 136, a couple of nice scores. And the Bombers obviously are a dark green matchup. So the best matchup for inside mids, best matchup last 5. And they've been giving up some pretty nice scores, obviously, to midfielders. Obviously, Dawson wasn't huge like we wanted last week, but Rankin went 121 there. Round before, he had Ward went 122, McKenzie 105, McDonald 108 as well. Week 4 ran 19. No one really from the Giants went well. Obviously, the Bombers played well that week. Obviously, ran 18. You had Ashcroft and Neil both went big with a 142 for Ashcroft, 153 for Neil. And then the week before that, Hall 152, Naz 160, and Garcia 115. So, give it some big scores. And I think I subscribe to the narrative that when a player gets tagged really hard one week and they don't get tagged the week after, they could go really big. And Baz got tagged really well by Ed Allen last week. No marks, only 1 tackle. I think this is a game at GMHBA where Baz obviously loves to score. I think he could have a big day here. So for me, I want a part of Baz this week, whether it's a captain or a vice captain. So Baz sits at my number 1 option for me this week. Coming in at number 2, I do have Nick Dacos. Obviously, we know how good he has been this year. Is he that? I'm just checking. I know Shees was close. Who's high averaging more? Is it Shees or is it Dacos now? Because they're pretty much averaging the same. So Dacos is still just ahead. So 116.6. So 119.6 to 1. They're both on 119.6. Maybe she's got more points for the year. I'm not sure because he's played every game, whereas Dacos missed one. Anyway, 119.6 average for the season, obviously, for Nick Dacos. And West Coast as well. They're a light green matchup for the season. 6th best matchup for inside mids on the season, but they're a dark green over the last 5. They are the 2nd best matchup for inside mids over the last 5 weeks. 133 for Taranto last week was a big score there. Brayshaw tunned up along with Sarong and Johnson the week before. Ashcroft a ton along with Dunkley 130. Neil tunned up and then Bont in ran 18, 117. Then ran 17. Dawson went to 126. Some of those big mids have gone really well against West Coast of late. And Dacos has got a really good record against the West Coast Eagles. So his last 5 against them, 126, 137, 131, 114, and 126. So 4 scores over 125. I think I quite like him as a captain option coming home in the second to last game of the round on the Sunday before the Sunday night game. So for me, I do like Nick Dacos as a captain option. So I think Baz into Dacos seems like a pretty nice combo as well this week. But coming in number 3, though, I do have Harry Sheasel. And I've been tossing up him and the next guy that we're going to talk about, which you probably got a bit of an indicator of. I nearly said starting with a J there. But I've got Sheasel just at number 3, just ahead of Jordan Dawson. So the reason I got Shees at number 3 and slightly down, so great matchup again for Shees this week. So Bulldogs, 4th best matchup for inside mid, so it's a green matchup and still a green matchup over the last 5, so there's still the 8th best matchup. So still giving up some points there. Last 4 against the Bulldogs though, only 1 ton for Shees, 3 90s, 93, 114, 91, 98. It's the 114 been the better score of the 4. On the roof though, on a Thursday night, really, really nice VC option to have. Obviously, he's averaging the same as Nick Dacos this season. And again, his form since round 13 has been great when he went 90, right? 129, 116, 173, 154, 124, 126, 118, 124. So just constantly churning out some great scores. The only reason he's probably lower than what he probably arguably could be, right, is, well, one, Baz and Dagos are pretty good options as well. But two, he played a bit more forward last week, which is the flag. I don't know if I love that as much. Wardlaw back in this week, so does that mean that Park gets shuffled back to half back, possibly, or does he stay in the midfield and does Wardlaw play like low tog and maybe a bit of half forward as well? Who knows? But she still showed last week with a 124 that he can still score regardless, right? So I think against the Dogs, under the roof on a Thursday night is a really nice VC option, and still someone that, even though I've got two guys ahead of him, is still in the mix for me as a VC option. He's going to be a very popular VC option this week. Obviously, a lot of people do go the VC on the Thursday or the Friday just to have a look if they need to loop and everything like that. So She's going to be a very popular option. So, I still really like She's this week as a VC option. But coming in number 4, though, I do have Jordan Dawson, who I just bumped down slightly below She's, really when I saw the weather. So the weather's a little bit wet, which obviously, Dawson will tackle, but the marks will be probably down from them. We know when Dawson hits those big ceiling scores, he gets the marks and the tackles. He has had scores, though, where he gets like high 20s disposals and like 10, 11 tackles and only a couple marks and still goes 130. So still very much a chance happens because he's up against Richmond, which is a good matchup on the season. So they're a dark green matchup on the season. So the second best matchup for inside mids on the season, but they are a neutral matchup over the last 5 weeks. So they are a 11th best matchup for inside mids over the last 5 weeks. They haven't really given up a huge amount of big scores of late. So Reid and Kelly went well last week, 114, 105. The week before against the Dogs, Bont went 114, but he was the only ton of the Bulldogs mids there. The Hawks mids, only McDonald tonned up there in that game. The other guys actually went pretty bad, all under 80, 75 or lower in that game. Jack Steele 113 for Melbourne, but even Cozzy struggled a bit more in that game as well. Sparrow nearly turned up but didn't quite get there. And Carlton, you had Hewitt 114 and Jag went 100. The other guys didn't go over the ton. So haven't really given up any of those big scores, right? So like looking there's no scores over 120 in the last 5 weeks against Richmond. So that's interesting when you look at it. So Richmond a bit more restrictive of late. That's why Dawson goes just below She's this week. But she's got a good record against Richmond, though. 133, 105, 124, 101, 99 in his last 5. So good record against them. At home, Adelaide Oval, I think he's still a good option. Obviously, flagged that if Crows are up by a little bit, does he rest a little bit there? That's probably why I've got him a little bit lower than the other guys, because I think there's less chance of that happening with the other 3. Baz, obviously, he could go there, do that as well. Dacos, maybe. So maybe She's is a better option as a VC, possibly there as well. But Dawson at 4 for me there as well. And coming in at my number 5, rounding out the top 5, I did end up making this change, particularly because of the weather in Adelaide. So Rankin was top 5. But now I've got Errol Goulden coming in at number 5, up against Port Adelaide at the SCG. I think he'll go quite well in this matchup. So Errol Goulden looks like he's really hitting form over the last few weeks. So looking at Errol Goulden's last few scores, obviously he had that 137 2-hits against the Giants and then a 104 last week. So 3 tons in his last 4 for Errol. Really seems to be hitting form. He's played an 80% tog in his last 5 games as well, so then worry about him getting back to speed. He's up to speed now, looking good. And even that score last week, he had 34 touches, only 3 marks and 2 tackles, which he has had a few more of those in other games throughout the year as well. 3 frees against. I know 2 of them were for holding the ball, so if that's a kick, that's a 12-point turnaround, obviously for the -3 instead of a +3. So that could have been a 120 last week. Just wasn't, obviously, with a few things not quite going his way. But up against Port, who have been giving up a few more scores of late as well, obviously just with a heap of injuries that Port have got at the moment. But Goulden, obviously, Port, neutral matchup on the season, so 9th best matchup for inside mids on the season, but they're a dark green matchup. 5th best matchup for inside mids over the last 5 weeks. And if we go to some of the players there as well, no one for the Giants did well last week. Obviously, Giants did struggle a little bit in the midfield last week, but like Will Ashcroft, 126, McCluggage, 115, Josh Dunkley, 107 in that game there. Lockie actually struggled a little bit there with a bit of attention, I think, in that game. Sarong went a 111 for Freo in that game, ran 19, ran 18. You had Naz went 119, Garcia 105, and then you had She's 154 and LDU 100 in round 17. So some good scores against Port of late there as well. I think Errol's the type of guy that will feast in a matchup like this. I think at the SCG at home, I think he'll go quite well there. So Errol rounds out my top 5. And coming in number 6, who was the guy that was inside the top 5 there, is Isaac Rankin. He's moved down outside the top 5 because of the weather. It's meant to be a little bit wet at Adelaide Oval at this stage, so that's why he's at number 6. But I still like the matchup for him. As I mentioned before, dark green matchup for the season, second best matchup for inside mids, 11th best for the season. So a bit more neutral of late, and haven't given up a lot of big scores. But Rankin played Richmond early this year. 162 at the MCG. And he, again, great performance from him as well, and really filled up all the stat lines there last week. So for that game, if you just go back to it there, so he had, obviously 162, had 33 disposals, 10 marks, 9 tackles, and kicked 1 goal, 1. So maybe less marks this time, but could kick an extra goal or 2. Maybe gets his high 20s touches again and goes pretty well. So for me, he's still an option if you want to go a little bit more unique, but obviously same game, you got Dawson, and obviously got some options beforehand. So might be tricky, might not be as many people look at there. Made for draft, though, would be obviously one that you do look at there as well. But still don't mind if you want to go him as a unique VC or captain option on the Saturday night. But the wet weather, probably just a little flag when it comes to ranking this week. At number 7, I do have Darcy Cameron up against West Coast. So already played this year, 124 had in that game. So obviously really good score from him. Before that, against West Coast, 102, 91, 109. West Coast, dark green matchup, second best for Rucks this year. The fourth best in the last 5, and there's still a dark green matchup over the last 5 weeks as well. So in terms of some of the scores that West Coast have given up of late, Nank 97, Jackson 109, and McAndrew 96. So no massive scores there. I think if it wasn't for Frere sort of managing Jacks a little bit more than what they have, I think you might have even gone possibly bigger than that. And McAndrew went pretty well as well. But obviously, is there any over the last 10 weeks so I can get a bit more of a gauge like this? No, they haven't really played any big rucks for a little bit there as well. Like Sweet went a 90 in round 13, but haven't played like a Gorn or anything like that for a while. So, yeah, so it's been a while, but on paper, still a good matchup for Rucks there as well. And Darcy Cameron, who's been in great form over the last month as well, as we know. Obviously, his last 4 scores this season, 121, 102, 137, 120. So 3 120s in his last 4. Really good. So if you want to go him as a bit of a different captain, you could. But obviously, a lot of coaching draft will look his way, I think, this week as well. There'll be, obviously, you choose to put him and Nick Dacos. If you want to go different, you could go him. But obviously, Nick will be the first choice, I think, in that game there as well. Coming in number 8, I've got Will Ashcroft up against Hawthorn. So Hawthorn, bit of an okay matchup. Green matchup for the season. Fifth best matchup for inside mids this season. 7th best last 5. So not too bad for Will Ashcroft. 103 in his most recent game against Hawthorn, and a couple of 70s there. But that's obviously going back a bit before, like sort of just before and before his obviously was ACL injury that he did there. But obviously Will Ashcroft has been someone who's been in great form for a while now. Obviously, yep, lower score last week, 106, had a 58-point quarter, so if he does a couple of those, that could be an absolute monster. But 106, 126, 108, 142, 120, 134, 152 in his last 7. So some really big scores there. 5 of those 7 over 120. So he's got the ceiling. Could be a nice, unique VC on a Friday night if you wanted to go there. Because I think at the Gabba, Brisbane are going to respond, I think, in a big way. I think Will Ashcroft could be someone that could really go well at the Gabba in this matchup. So I don't mind Will Ashcroft. He sits at number 8. I do have Lockie Whitfield at number 9. He's down here. So up against Gold Coast. He's got a good history against Gold Coast. So he's turned up in his last 4 games against Gold Coast where he hasn't been concussed early, right? So 113, 103, the 23 where he was obviously concussed early in the game, 145, 106, there his last 5 against Gold Coast. Gold Coast neutral matchup for the season, 9th best matchup for rebound defenders for the season, 10th best last 5, so neutral for both. Not sort of bad or not too good in a way. But in terms of Whitfield, his form though has been pretty good. Obviously went 127 last week against Port, 104 before that. 89 against Essendon in a poor game for them. 67 obviously the injured game. Was that? I can't remember. Was that concussion? I can't remember what he missed for that game, but might have been. I think it was concussion there. But he was on 6-7 before half time in that game as well. Yeah, so he's been in a decent form. Look at that, particularly last week, looked really, really good. So I think Whitfield could go quite well in this matchup against Gold Coast, and I've got him at number 9. And rounding out the top 10, it's hard to leave him out of the top 10. But I've got Nasai Wanganeen-Miller rounding out the top 10. And the reason he's rounding out the top 10 is just because of how good this guy is. His last 5 against Carlton, no score over 110, 104, 108 in his last 2, before that 89, 74 and 55. But I'm not looking too far about that for Naz. Obviously, he's been amazing more so the last 2 years or so. Carlton, though, neutral matchup for the season, 8th best for inside mids on the season, but they are a red matchup. Second hardest matchup for inside mids over the last 5 weeks. And if we look just at some of the scores that they've given up, there hasn't been many. Has not been many scores that they have given up at all. Why is this not showing up? No, that's because it's last 10 weeks. Sorry, last 5 weeks. Here we go. So Carlton, Ashcroft and Dunkley ton up last week, but they required a 50-point quarter each to get those tons. Anderson went 110, but obviously was on 70 at halftime, then bad after that. Dacos went 113, Will Day 102, but they're the only tons over the last 5 weeks, right? So not giving up much at all. So no score over 113. So not giving up much at all. So that's obviously the flag for Naz, but Naz is the sort of guy that could smash a matchup regardless of what the matchup is, right? We obviously saw what he did against North Melbourne the week before last with a 182. Yep, went a 99 last week, but he was on 102 pretty early into that last quarter. Obviously gave a free kick away, then copped that hip knock as well. Then the Mullen tag before that with a 76, but before that Naz, 119, 160, 136, 110, 105, 104, 119. So was just absolutely smashing it before that. So I think he's got to be in the top 10 with how good Naz is, averaging 111 for the year. But obviously he's down the list because of the tough matchup this week against Carlton. So that's why he is down the list a bit for me. Some of the guys that missed out. So Bont missed out for me. He was at number 11. If I was to do 11th, he would be number 11. The tag flag is there with Foss/Simpkin could go to him in this matchup. But he's got a really good record against North Melbourne. 133, 117, 126, 158 in his last 4 against them. So great record. Bont doesn't generally have 2 bad games like that in a row. So with a 58 last week, you expect a big bounce back from the Bont on the roof. Thursday night could stand up in a big way. North Melbourne, neutral matchup on the season. 11th best matchup for inside mids on the season. They're a dark green, though, over the last 5. So they're equal 3rd best in the last 5 weeks for inside mids. And just some of the scores they've been giving up. So you had a 121 from Newcombe last round, a 182. So the 182 skews it a tiny bit, obviously, with Naz there. But even Philippa and Boxall and guys like that went over their average by over 20 points. Thomas Sparrow went 130, Cozzy 109. So they've been still giving up some scores. Not a lot of big scores, but they are susceptible to giving up, say, a big score or 2 in a matchup. And Bont could be that guy. But I don't know if I can put him in the top 10 just after what I saw last week. The 58. And we haven't seen the same Bont this year compared to what we've seen in previous years, right? So his last 120 plus score was in round 15 against the Saints with a 127. Before that, it was back in round 9 against Port when he went to 143. That was obviously the not too far after come back from that injured score against Geelong. So he's had 1, 2. So he's only had 4 scores this year over 120, which is surprising when you look at it. And 2 of those were in the first 4 weeks. Hasn't had the big ceiling year of Bont. That's why he's not in the top 10. But would I be shocked if Bont had a monster score on a Thursday night against North? No, but he just doesn't quite make top 10 for me this week. We do have Max Gawn against Freo. He'd be decently there as well at probably number 12 or so against Freo. Good record against Freo. 3 120s in a row against them. 127, 125, 123. We know Freo are a different beast this year. But he did go 127 against them earlier this year. So that's one to flag, and that was at Optus. This at the MCG, which we know Gawn loves to score at. Freo, though, red matchup. 7th hardest matchup for Rucks this season. 4th hardest last 5. So still red matchup there. So I don't love the matchup there. But Gorney could still go quite well this week. Isaac Heaney doesn't make top 10 because a couple of reasons. So one, hasn't really put up many ceiling scores of late. So his highest score in his last 5 is a 107. And then the 104 was his next best. He had a 126 against Brisbane in round 16. Then the 160 against Richmond, but there is only 120 plus scores since round 5. So it's been a while since Heaney's gone really big there. Port is a good matchup, but I think Birdman will do a job on him. That's my other flag. And then the other one, obviously, is if Sydney are up decently in the last quarter, Heaney and even Grundy are the 2 guys they're going to rest, right? So that's the only other flag. So he doesn't make the top 10 this week, but could still go well as well. Ed Richards, he's the guy that I sort of think could get the Foss tag. So it could be like Foss goes to Richards, Simpkin goes to Bont, or the other way around. Like that might be what they do. But Ed Richards could cop attention. So if you've got him in draft VC, yep, you could go there. But obviously, because we're not looking there. Cripps, I wouldn't look at this week against the Saints. Could cop the Boxall tag, I think. Jackson, I'm not looking at Jackson as a captain option at the moment. Just hasn't put up a score since that Geelong game. And obviously, Freo are in a great spot. They can manage these players in games. So I think Jackson could get management. And it's a tough matchup against Gawn anyway. John Noble's a bit of a unique. I don't mind if you want to VC him into like a Nick Dacos. It's got the ceiling, 152 last week. Giants, he already had a big score against them earlier this season as well. So if I just pop up that score from John Noble against them earlier in the season, he ended up having a 144 against them. Was that at TIO? I think it was. I reckon it was up in Darwin. Or it was actually, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was at People First Stadium. But yeah, 144. Yeah, it was a People First Stadium, actually. I remember that game as well. Yeah, 144. So good score from there. Could be unique VC if you want to go someone a bit more unique this week. Josh Dagos will get the Milan Murdoch tag. Could go into the midfield like we saw in the last quarter last week, but I'm not looking anywhere near that this week. Zach Merritt, Mullen tag, I think we'll get that this week. Archierod's been poor for a while. Newcomb might get Dunkley there, and obviously we're not looking to, like, yeah, Neil, Hawthorn, draft, you could look there as well. Grundy against Port. Sweetie's a tough ruck there as well, and I'm probably not looking at anyone else on the list there. So that will be the top 10 this week. Was there anyone on my list that we didn't touch on? Oh, Brad Hill was the only one I wrote down here. Just probably not looking there this week with a tough matchup against Carlton. Obviously, hardest matchup for rebound defenders on the season. That's still the hardest over the last 5. So, yeah, not great. He hasn't turned up in his last 5 against Carlton either. But obviously, Brad Hill at the moment is different to what we've seen really in any part of his career, right? His lowest score was the 88 since Sinclair's been out against Geelong. 105 last week was his next lowest, but then other than that, 115, 134, 131, 159 are his other scores since being this halfback distributing more prominent role. So you could look there if you want a bit more of a unique captain, but I think we've got better options this week. So cool. That is my top 10. My plans this week is VC Baz into Dacos. But all week I've obviously considered VCing Shees into a Baz, VCing Shees into a Dacos, VCing a Dawson into a Dacos. Any iteration of these top 4 I've been looking at as well. Have also quietly thought about maybe an Errol was a bit more of a unique VC. Or actually, no, it wouldn't be a VC, it'd be a captain because he plays after a Baz, right? So it might be, no, he plays before. Does he? Or is it at the same time? No, we've got 2 overlap. I did actually miss that again. We've got 2 overlapping Twilight games. That's fun. Not being able to watch both those games. But anyway, I digress. But Baz into Dacos is my current plan at the moment. So that is my plan. So anyway, let me know in the comments below, guys, what you guys doing with your captains for round 22. Which 2 of the big 4 are you going for this week? Because I think there's some really good options this week. So who are you going for this week? Let me know in the comments below. If you did enjoy, as always, make sure you smash like on the video. That'd be very much appreciated. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are just over 100 away from 5K. So if you can help us hit that goal, that would be very much appreciated. Yeah, good luck with your captains this week. We'll be back live tomorrow, as always, for a pre-lockout chat at 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. per time, answering more of your questions. And yeah, until then, good luck with your captains this week. Got your trades and everything. We'll catch you guys tomorrow for the pre-lockout chat. So thanks, everyone. Catch you then. See ya.